Well, thank you all for making it this morning. How about that snow, huh? Shovel your walks, shovel your driveways, only to finish and then realize you gotta start all over again. That's just a real treat, isn't it? A little bit. Welcome to Social Media Breakfast. Oh, gotta turn it on. That's how you can engage and connect with us. Take a mental note of that. It's also on our website, SMBYEG.ca. Lovingly created by Peter and Tammy. Tammy was one of the gals that was checking in, so thank them all. There we go. So, news. Who's new to Social Media Breakfast? I know there's a few new faces. I know a few people have never ever been here before. Welcome. Yeah. Other panel's like, yeah, I'm new here. I don't know what to expect. So our mission is to build and grow Edmonton's social media community through putting on networking and education events like this at all levels. So it just basically helps promote the community from within. There's some people here that are just dipping their toes into the social media pool. Other people have just like cannonball right in, and they're frolicking and they're splashing. They got their water wings on and their duck floaties, and they're just like, come on in, the water's fine. Well, we're also here to tell you that the water's fine and you should jump right in. So welcome again to Social Media Breakfast. And SMB38 is our name. You and Media. That was a catchy title that I thought of, so props to me. Once again, a little bit about us. We've been 38. This is our 38th breakfast. Yeah, some of us have been here since the very start, and it's kind of crazy that now we started off. I'm just thinking about all the social media breakfasts past, and to bring it here to now to have this awesome group of panelists on this lovely fireside chat. When we started off, it was just we're in the CBC community room. We have some awesome bread by Prairie Mills. We have some coffee lovingly donated by Starbucks, and now we've just exploded to a sold-out event. Some people couldn't make it because of the weather, but now we're recording this for the awesome people as well too, and it's great. It's awesome. High five, Jackie, for sticking around here too. So it's pretty cool. And I know, right? Let's give it a round of applause. So, holidays are coming up. Who here's going to do some Black Friday shopping? Anybody? Has anybody done any pre-Black Friday shopping? No, you're saving your money for Christmas. Well, what if I told you that there's an opportunity for you to win an awesome prize that can A, go in your stocking, or B, go in someone else's stocking? What? Well, thanks to our good friends at Rhino Pack, we are giving away one of the awesome Rhino Packs. Who here knows? Yeah, I know, right? Who here knows what a Rhino Pack is? Well, for those of you who don't know, I'll feed you, baby birds. I will feed you. This right here is a Rhino Pack. And what it is, it's basically a portable device charger. So you can go out, you can frolic in the mountains, you can go do death race, you can just go camping with your friends. I've seen a Rhino Pack in Mexico with the Blitz conditioning crew. When we were live tweeting that little sucker, this is how we charge the phones. These things are incredibly versatile, incredibly durable, and we are giving one away to you guys. So, how do you enter, you say? Well, it's as simple as Social Media Breakfast. We have something called knowledge bombs. And knowledge bombs are the awesome tidbits of information that you learn at a social media breakfast. So you either have to submit your favorite knowledge bomb, or you have to submit your favorite memory. It could be the awesome and humorous high-energy host. It can be the awesome breakfast assortment. It can be anything. Just your favorite social media breakfast memory. And what you have to do is submit that to us by Wednesday, December 10th at 11:59 p.m. to our email, smbedmonton@gmail.com. And I know what you're saying. You're like, what? I can't possibly remember all this information. Do you guys have like a website or a blog with this contest details? Well, we do. So go to SMBYEG.ca, click on the blog section of our website, and it has all the contest details there. So learn a bunch of knowledge bombs today. Just watch them get dropped on you, and after the windfall, after your brain settles down from all the learnings, type it in a friendly email, send it to us, and you can win one of these awesome Rhino Packs. So special thanks to the awesome Rhino Pack folks for donating. We can't nourish your minds without some awesome food sponsor nourishing your bodies. The calendar just fell behind me because all the men in there are drop-dead gorgeous. And it's just like... So, let's get our awesome friends at Blue Train to come up and tell us what it's all about.
So I'm gonna not talk. I just wanted to introduce you to Blue Train. I'm the owner. Started it almost 8 years ago now, and now we're a great team of 10 people, totally focused just on online marketing. It's all we do every day. We have our focus is the continual improvement of online. We work with clients for years and not months. So if you're looking for a long-term partner to do SEO, online advertising, social media, analytics, all that fun stuff, that's what we do. That's we eat and breathe that. There's a few of us here today. A few of us couldn't because of snow. But Allie's here, and wave your hand at me. Shri and myself. So if you want to chat with us after, we'd love to meet with you. We really are excited about this specific topic. Although we are eat and breathe online marketing, we always are strong believers of all marketing, especially in terms of PR and media. Clients with the strongest brands and the ones that actually build awareness effectively are the best clients for us. And so, just to give you an example, what's more interesting for us to be sharing socially with our clients? Is it, hey, we just added our new products on our website, or hey, we're going to be on, breakfast television to give a demo of our new SMBYEG, right? That's a lot more cool and a lot more fun for us to share, and you're going to get a lot more out of it. So that's we're really excited to hear the tips, and I'm excited to be here. So thanks for coming. Everyone here gets a gold star for being here. I think the cool thing is, everyone here is completely dedicated and committed because they made it through the snow. So thanks for coming. We're happy to sponsor, and come and chat with us after. Thanks.
So Blue Train has actually donated another awesome prize. And how you win that is you are going to mention Blue Train Inc. on Twitter and SMBYEG on the Twitter with your favorite knowledge bomb. Please keep it to a few submissions. We don't want to flood the feeds, but something that pops out of this awesome panel discussion, you're like, oh my God, I need to put that in writing and send it on the internet right now. Well, when you do, make sure you mention Blue Train Inc. and SMBYEG. And you can win an awesome prize from them and an awesome prize from us. Prizes! Here are our awesome SMB farmers. These guys essentially just planted the seeds of social media breakfast, nourished it with some water and some love and tender loving care, and watched it bloom into this awesome plant it is today. So thanks to Genome Alberta, iCan Media, Startup Edmonton, and Samdesk. We wouldn't be the event we are without these fine folks, so we always feel like we need to recognize them for their awesomeness. And speaking of awesomeness, we have a committee based of fine, fun-filled folks. Evan Edams, Jackie Fraser, myself, Stephen Hodges, Tammy Lee, and Peter Wiegren. This is our SMB planning committee, so yeah, just feel free to say hi after the little chat today, and we'll be happy to make friends, because at Social Media Breakfast, our motto is there's no such things as strangers, just friends you haven't met yet. That's right, Liz. So, speaking of sponsors, like our awesome folks at Blue Train Inc., if you want to help nourish the bodies of our attendees, take two, and action. If you want to help nourish the bodies of our attendees while we and our awesome speakers nourish their minds, you too could sponsor a social media breakfast for the low price of $295. Now what that entails is we will shamelessly promote you as much as we shamelessly promote our events, as well as we will give you the floor for 5 minutes, and some people just appreciate that because that's 5 minutes spent you talking instead of 5 minutes spent me talking. So do the attendees a favor, take this mic away from me for 5 minutes and talk about how awesome your organization is, or if you want to sponsor a client, talk about how awesome they are too. So if you're interested in that, just find me at the end of the breakfast and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. Housekeeping items. Should you need them, bathrooms are located out that door, around this giant window, and straight ahead if you're a lady, or to the right if you're a gentleman. Now, who here's done Breakout? Has anybody played Breakout yet? Breakout is this awesome business game idea in Edmonton. It's right beside the Doubletree Inn, and basically it's a bunch of different theme rooms, and you have to solve these puzzles to escape the room. Now, last year, Sorry, take two. Last month at Social Media Breakfast, the men's bathroom was a breakout challenge because when the door closed, the inside handle was broken, so you had to like jiggle it and like stick it in the right way and then put it at an angle and then twist, and then that got you out of the bathroom. So I was trapped there for about a good 5-10 minutes, but then when I solved the puzzle, I felt happy for myself. So this month it's not happening, but check out Breakout as well too. So that's my plug for Breakout and housekeeping items. We love it when you guys live tweet our events, but can I ask you to not be that person and put your phone to silent or vibrate? I heard a little tweet too earlier, and that's great if you were whistling at how good looking I was, but if that was your phone on some sort of notification, turn it to vibrate or silent. Some people have some really weird ringtones, and this is not the time to hear them. So, like mine's the Power Ranger, but you won't hear it because it's on vibrate or silent. So, welcome again to UN Media. What I'm going to do now is introduce our fine media folks, current and former, and they're going to sit around here and we'll start this little chat. So, first off, we have our panel, who you will meet. Karen Unland, come on down and find an awesome seat. Woo, Karen! And bonjour, Brenton Dridger, come on down. Konnichiwa, Jason Halbauer. That's a wicked beard, by the way.
Sad to see it go.
Just wait till the Sen beard and it's going to come back in full force, right? And hola, Laura Osman. So, thank you all for joining us. So, the first question is going to be, who are you and what do you do? So, I will start with you, Karen, and then just pass the mic on to these awesome folks, and then we'll get set for our lovely fireside chat. See, a pixel of fire. Ooh, aren't I nerdy?
Hello. Oh, I'm glad I have a mic because I can't talk very loud because I have this cold that's going around. Okay, so my name is Karen Unland. I used to be a reporter and then an assignment editor and then other kinds of editors and then the editor in charge of EdmontonJournal.com for 14 years at the Edmonton Journal. And so I have that experience that I'm drawing on to answer your questions and your questions. Right now, I run a project that's based at the Edmonton Journal for Post Media called Capital Ideas, which is a completely different way of serving our community and paying attention to entrepreneurs.
My name is Brenton Dreger. I've spent my whole, 8 years in media, in AM radio. How many people can say that? I started out in Winnipeg and I moved here in 2008 for a full-time job as the morning anchor on iNews 880. And a couple years ago, I became the assistant news director / assignment editor at iNews 880 and 630 CHED, so that's where I am.
He's got such a great voice, doesn't he? Listen to that all day. Yeah, I'm Jason. I work at Breakfast Television. I worked there for about 3 years. I work as a producer, so I book interviews, bands, chefs, that sort of thing. So if there's any big ideas that you have, I'm the guy that you would go to for that. So.
I'm Laura. I just recently became the City Hall reporter for CBC Edmonton. I moved to Edmonton about 4 years ago, and I've done almost every single job in that office. I started on Edmonton AM, which you might know, with host Mark Connolly, as an assistant producer, and then I moved to our Weekend TV News, and I moved up to the assignment producer of Weekend TV News before getting into television reporting, and now I'm doing City Hall.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. Sometimes I need the mic, sometimes I don't.
So, starting off, what is the biggest scoop you've ever covered? What's like the biggest, most sexiest story?
You guys have more experience than me have.
All right.
My first story for CBC was in Ottawa, and I was an intern with the investigative unit. And what we did was we made a request from the city, a FOIP request, and we got all of the complaints about landlords and apartments from the city and compiled a list to find out which landlords had the most complaints against them. And we found this complex that was like a total slum situation. And it was filled with new immigrants who couldn't sort of speak up for themselves. And there were like leaky hot water tanks, there was holes in the wall, no heat in the winter, lampposts that were on a side that were electrocuting children. It was a really, really bad situation that was going totally undetected. And so we did a big investigative story on 3 platforms for CBC Ottawa. And the city got involved, they came in, they reprimanded the landlord, the city councillor got involved, and actually they fixed the whole area. And then other cities started looking into it. They found these kind of slums all over the country, and they started getting fixed all over the country. So that was my first story for CBC, and it was the one that I don't think I'm going to top. I think I peaked early. But
Set the bar pretty high for the first go.
that's right. I'll never have another scoop like that again. But it was probably the one that I'm most proud of.
Coolest producer moment?
Coolest producer moment. Maestro Press West was a really cool one. He came on and he was totally awesome. Commander Hatfield, that was a great, that interview just went so great. And yeah, it's not as exciting maybe, but my stuff's all behind the scenes.
TJ Miller was also
TJ Miller is
and then
great.
he was the breakfast television. A few seconds he was on there with Mr. Jesperson was featured on Conan. If I remember.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
So that's pretty cool too.
As an anchor, I'm not breaking a lot of scoops myself. I'm mostly reading what other people have done, I guess. And some of my highlights that I look back are probably a little bit depressing, especially in a break. But what gets me really excited, not in a like, yay, this is happy, but in a, this is an adrenaline rush, is when bad things happen, like really bad things. The one example that pops to mind is the WCB hostage-taking situation and how I usually anchor till 9 in the morning, but because of how we were shuffling staff around that day to cover it, I ended up anchoring until like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and there were new details coming in all the time. And so just being on the air, like you see some details come into your software that you're reading off of, this just in, like a lot of that type of stuff is sobering, but also it's an adrenaline rush being in the moment on those days. And I guess in a similar vein but different was when I got to go out and cover the Alison Redford PC leadership win. I was there for the second bout when she actually won the PC leadership. And being there in a breaking news situation that took about 3 hours to break because they couldn't count the votes fast enough, it was exciting because we had an Oilers hockey game that night. The Oilers post-game guy stayed on the air to try and get the PC leadership results on. And so he and another news guy are like filling time, talking about anything they can talk about. So they're phoning me every 20 minutes, and I'm just, shooting the breeze with them. You know where you're in a situation where there's a TV reporter on, and he's just talking as much as, he or she's talking as much as they can just to fill time. That was me, and I loved that they would just ask me an open-ended question, and then I would just talk about whatever I wanted to PC leadership for 2 minutes before they would cut me off. So that was another fun one.
I thought of a couple of things. So,
Nice.
Okay. So the story that I got nominated for a National Newspaper Award for was early in my reporting career at the Journal. Photographer Brian Gavriloff and I met a family where a 9-year-old boy had cancer in his leg, in his femur, and what they were going to do was cut this part of his leg off and then take the rest of his leg, turn it around, and reattach it so that his ankle became his knee joint. And so we followed Matthew through a few weeks before his operation. We spent all day with them at the hospital, and we followed him for the next few months till he could walk again, and then did a big takeout, which that was a life-changing kind of reporting experience, and a different kind of thing where you actually get to know the people that you're reporting on. So that was great, and it got me a full-time job because I was on a contract at the time. Then the thing that comes to mind from my behind-the-scenes work was I was the editor that helped make happen the restaurant inspections story that Karen Cleese and Charles Rusnell did right at the beginning of the Journal, actually recognizing there was an internet. And so what we did was put, which took a while, I gotta say, but we put, they put a searchable database of all the restaurant inspection data that was not available before. They had to FOIP it. And they actually forced Alberta Health Services to make that data possible so that you can look up and see if there's like mouse poop in your food. So that was interesting and fun.
I can assure you that the chocolate chips and the banana bread are actually chocolate chips and not mouse droppings. Just let you know. Well, that's cool because sometimes, yeah, when you're covering stories such as like food safety, health safety, restaurant safety, and then like slumlords getting away with essentially like making people live in deplorable conditions. It's just like they really listen change, and then yeah, just kind of we've covered the gamut with the hard hitting, deep stories like from the WCB hostage situation. I remember when I think I was working for the government at the time too in Alberta agriculture, and we were like, is this gonna happen to us now too? Is someone gonna come in with a rifle and take us over too? And we're just like, yeah, literally glued to iNews 880, 630 Chad, the radio stations, everything, just kind of waiting for the next update. So it's really, really cool. So we have, a great representation from print, television, and radio here. So in your respective mediums, what makes a good news story?
So when I was on the assignment desk, what I used to tell the reporters is I would like you to answer the question, why are you telling me this now? Because there's a million things that can be written about or talked about on broadcast, but there's like what is happening and why is it particularly relevant at this moment as opposed to any other moment. I think that's still key to news, and I think that if you're pitching a news outlet on a story, that you need to be aware of why are you telling me this now? What is the hook? What is the reason for doing that? As I've thought more about the nature of journalism and the future of media, I've softened my stance on that a little bit because I think that it creates a bit of a bias towards what is new, what is hot, what is hooked onto some kind of fake kind of hook, like it's Black Friday, let's do a whole bunch of stories about whatever, and it makes for kind of fake news, like FARC, right? Like just space filler. I think that as you see the rise of the explainer through Vox and 538 and a lot of other things, that there's a proof that there's an audience for like, tell me why this is and how does this work, which is not necessarily the answer to why you're telling me this now. It's like I want to understand this better, and I think that that's our job too.
When I was in journalism school, I remember the first thing they taught me that made something newsworthy was the acronym SIN. It's significant, interesting, and new. So that's what I started going off of. After I got out of school, I got my kind of first summer job with the government, like hire a student office. And so I'm sending out these emails saying, hey, can you guys do a story on the fact that our hire a student office is open for the summer? And like all the business reporters are like, no, like, is there something new? So that's where I kind of hit the real world. It's like, oh, I need to give them a trend, or like, like we have more students coming and looking for jobs this year, or there's more openings, or all the jobs are lousy, or something like that they can actually write about something that is new. Then in my first radio job, I had kind of an old school radio news director, and his thing was always stories of mass appeal, stories that appeal to many people, or a good chunk of people. And for me now, I guess, especially somehow in radio, I think, maybe this comes out a bit more, is what are people talking about? Kind of like what Karen says, why are you telling me this now? What are people talking about? And sometimes the big story of the day, honestly, is the snow outside, because every conversation that 90% of people have today will start with snow. And so sometimes we're like, well, yeah, it's snowing, we're not going to do a news story on that, that's dumb, everybody knows it's snowing, but at the same time, everybody's talking about it, so it needs to kind of be represented in your news that way.
So for me, it's always about finding the right visual component to it, because I mean, there's so many great people doing so many wonderful things, so many charities, and then you have it on TV and it just falls flat, because it's like, no matter how cool you are, no matter how interesting your story is, it's just like, you need something more to kind of make it. So a good example of that, YEG Snow Fight was on our show today, and they've been covered in the media for weeks and weeks, but we had the advantage of like snowy day, like huge snowfall, and so we had like snowball fight out on Jasper Ave. Like that's how we kind of like make it that extra punch and that extra relevant, and that's something that, oh hey, people will tune in for, we put it online and people are going to watch that, right? Rather than just like, oh hey, you guys are having a snow fight, tell us about that. So So that's sort of our angle. Yes.
I always approach my TV stories a little bit different than I approach my print or web stories. When I think about a good TV story, I think about what are the elements of a good story. So if you think about a fairy tale, for example, you need a really good setting, you need really strong characters, you need a narrative, and you need a moral. And the moral to me is always the impact on the audience. Like, how is this story relevant to me? What am I learning from this? And a lot of times it's just, that your street is going to get plowed a little bit later in the season, so watch out for that. But sometimes it's something really important about government or about your city, or just how can I help this person that was in this story. But I think the characters have to be strong in TV because it's 2 minutes and you have to hold the attention of the audience for that entire period. And you need good visuals and a good setting and art to carry you through the whole thing.
You can hold on that, I'll just use my projection voice and then we'll go around. So, one reoccurring kind of thematic theme I heard was the why. And in public relations school, or where I went, Mount Royal University, they always told us to kind of sell the sizzle, not the steak. I think that a lot of people always tell, as soon as news breaks, either it's online or via the different mediums, it's always the who, what, the when, but the why is always missed, that sizzle part of the story. So as a communicator, as someone who wants to pitch a story to the media, what's the best way of conveying that sizzle, that why? Is it just through words, or is it through visualization, or a casual conversation like a phone call, or is it the press release going into your inbox? What's the best way to kind of pitch that story to your different types of media? What gets you covered these days?
In our office, the press release is still a really important part of finding out, because if we get a phone call from every single person who wants to have a story out on our website, we would stop answering the phone.
Is the city
too much.
pretty good at covering the why of their stories?
Sometimes you have to dig a little bit, right? You get a press release and it's this is happening, and you're like, great. Why would anyone care? And that's why you have to dig a little bit more, and that's why a lot of press releases end up getting trashed pretty quickly. Yeah, but when I was assignment producer on the weekend, I was always looking for, okay, how are they making this issue interesting? Or how are they conveying why readers would care about this? Is it going to impact them? Is there some action they can take? Is there an event they can attend that would be meaningful to them? So that, I think, has to be in the top line of your press release if you're going to be sending one out, because the rest of it is just details.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Laura mostly on this one. It's just there's a million things going on that are interesting and relevant, but it's that extra spin. It's that extra why is this unique to this exact charity or whatever it is. It's just that extra bit of sizzle. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, if you can spell out the why, you can spell it out. You can really dumb it down or spell it out as much as you want in the news release. And I think the email is still the best way. I think maybe this is just a personal thing, but if somebody's if I see on Twitter that somebody's tweeted me and 50 other people in news, I think I'm kind of
Yeah.
I'll probably. But the thing about the email, and this is the psychology that again, maybe it's just me, other people can weigh in on this too, but there's something about the psychology of sending an email is I feel like in our newsroom, there's a bit of this if it's in the email, someone can be like, hey, did you see that story about so-and-so? It's almost like we need to feel like we've still discovered it. Mm-hmm. Instead of somebody being like, here's a story, boom, do it. It's right here, just rewrite this news release, maybe with shorter quotes or something like that. Whereas if you let us find it in the email, then you feel like we've discovered a story a little, even though everyone else will have it on the 6 o'clock news on the website, right? You can even do a phone call. You can be like, hey, is there so-and-so calling? Did you see the news release? Okay, good, thanks. But if you say, oh yeah, just want to remind you, we're having this event, will you come out? If you start really pushing it, then it'll feel less it'll feel less like we found it, more like someone's really, it's mom telling us to clean our rooms. And the example I have is, there was the week before Remembrance Day, the province sent out an email saying, hey, we're going to do an update on how many of those Support Our Troops license plates we sold. And so I saw that, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I'd like to do a story on that. Then a PR person phones me, he's like, yeah, don't know if you saw our news release. I'm like, yeah, no, I did, yeah. He's like, so, it's Remembrance Day almost, so it's kind of important to support our troops. And I was like, yeah, it's November 8th. Yep, no, I got it. So it was just kind of then the psychology was I was feeling less like I wanted to do the story.
I kind of took the the thrill of the chase away. So you come in, you know, our soldiers have died, we're gonna celebrate them, we're gonna remember them.
Are you a good person?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to to have in mind whose problem are you solving. It's not yours, right? Like if you're sending out a press release, you're motivated by the need to solve you or your company's problem. We need media attention for this thing, but that's not the right motivating factor for you, because then you won't craft it in a way that's going to get these people to pay attention to you. So keep in mind that any reporter's first allegiance has to be to her readers or viewers. So you have to frame this in terms of that you are getting important and useful information to the audience, not that you are fulfilling some check marks for, well, we tried to get media attention for this thing. Or I got a commitment from 6 reporters that they were going to be at my press conference. The other thing to keep in mind is that anybody who's making assignment decisions, whether they're a reporter or an editor, is overloaded with a million sources of information. So most of it's coming through email now, but it's also coming in like snail mail and faxes still, and now social media, and we're getting pinged all the time. And so you need to cut through all of that noise and understand that most people will never read most of what you're writing. And if you don't catch them, I think in the subject line, first of all, don't do faxes and snail mail, but if you don't catch them in the subject line, like they're just not even gonna open it because they get too much stuff. And so you need to make sure that's almost like a craft in itself that they should have a whole class on. And
Punchy
that
headlines.
now is like subject lines that actually get somebody to see.
So to sum it up, so punchy headlines, punchy subject lines, kind of sell the sizzle in that story, but also allow the media to discover the story in the content as well too. Don't just spoon feed them your story. And then if you do happen to call and follow up, have a casual conversation, just make sure they receive the news release, but don't be like, are you coming? Are ya? You can tell me. You can tell me. So, what like, with the headlines, with the news releases, whoa, punchy. Fix that.
I'll just project, but
Are we good now? Or are we, don't pop your peas. That's the first thing they teach in radio school, isn't it? So with these punchy subjects, what subjects like catch your eye? Like when someone sends you an email, what sort of subject headings, like what sort of like fun conversation, are they fun conversational pieces, or is it like peaches, or peaches, you know, whatever, same difference. Peaches are delicious, especially fuzzy peaches. Ramble. Yeah, but what sort of subjects? Because when I'm sending news releases out, yeah, I try to make them informative yet kind of punchy and casual and conversational. Like you want it to be like, it's not just your typical grand opening store, 9 p.m., be there sort of thing. Not like an advertorial sort of thing too, because that's also a very fine line when you're trying to pitch stories to television, print, radio, media. You don't want it to be like essentially an advertorial, like X is opening or we're doing Y, but essentially being like, we want free advertising for our event. Can you help us do that? You gotta make that why really pop out. So what subjects, what whys are kind of the most attractive to your guys in your respective mediums? And in your experience too, pitching like capital ideas, you guys are very good at selling the why, like right in the subject. It's like how to hire better, how to build your business, how to grow. Like people are like, I want to build my business, I want to hire better. Like you have that why right there. So yeah, help us find the why.
So I think it depends on whether this is just like mass information everybody needs to know, you know, like the city budget is out, here's the website where you can learn how to understand the city budget better or whatever. So that's that kind of almost public service stuff you want to send to everybody and get it, do the shotgun and get it out as much as possible. I think that if, like for me, when I was a reporter, I almost always had a beat and areas of interest, and I need you to know what I do well enough to know that I'm the person that you pitch, say an education story, because I was on the education beat for a long time. So there's some things that you just want everybody to know. You want to make sure that it's at the top of the news, and it's going to be, you know, part of the package on on TV or whatever, but then there's some stories where you're actually going to get a better bang for your buck if one reporter picks it up and then everybody follows him or her. And so in order to do that, you need to know which reporter is going to do the best job at getting at the actual meat of that story. And that means that you have to read and watch widely. Like, you need to know, well, Laura is the new City Hall reporter, so I should give her this inside information about this thing. And then when she breaks it big, everybody else follows her, and then you get your big bag of media coverage instead of sending out a press release to everybody. Everybody sees it, everybody's been BCC'd on it, and they say, that's not news, actually.
You should do that. You should email me directly.
Yeah, that's a great point. In our newsroom, we don't really have, we're a bit more general assignment reporting, I suppose. We don't really have a whole lot of specialties other than we have a City Hall reporter who does a bit of provincial politics and a little bit of this and that, but he's primarily City Hall. So in a general assignment setting like ours, I think if you're pitching something like, to use the, hey, our business is opening, how can we get coverage? If you can, and you can even spell this out real plain and simple in the news release, is just say why this has a broader appeal. I'm not just opening a restaurant on this street in this neighborhood, but it's part of the ongoing rejuvenation, and it's going to be a, it's going to be a real boost to the neighborhood, and it's fits into this trend. So if you can identify a trend, a change that your particular story is a part of, it's just a snapshot of the bigger picture, then that's something that you can identify and then be, oh. So that's, I think, a little trick you can use to kind of bait the general assignment people.
So from like a television production standpoint, it's more about like, can I picture this being on air? So if somebody emails me and they say, Bridget down with 30 kids doing karate or something like that, it's like, oh, hey, that sounds like something that we would do. So for us, the why is not, at least for what I do in the in-studio segments, is more around just sort of making it sexy in the sense that like it's something that you would want to see on TV. And there is obviously like our demographic is sort of like women from whatever age to sort of 28 to 35 or whatever. So something that fits in with that, like good fashion pitches, those are always things that we are interested in.
Yeah, I think Karen made a really good point, jokes aside, is that if you have a story that you want someone to really invest in and tell it well, giving it to the reporter who you think would do a great job of it and giving it to them as an exclusive, like a present, you're going to get a little bit farther with that story. I also tend to lean, I haven't done a press release story since I started City Hall about 4 months ago, because I only do stories that I think are going to be original, otherwise I would just get them from council. But when it comes to press releases, I lean toward ones that are people-focused, ones that are talking about either exactly how they're going to impact people or if they have a character in mind. But the thing about that is that you need to really follow through with that promise. If that's in your press release, you need to actually have that person exist and be available to the media. I can think of one example. We went to the grand opening of the Pogo car share, which seems like a fabulous initiative, and it was a great story about how, this is going to really connect Edmonton. It's going to be great for people who live downtown and who don't want a car and who take public transit. But those people who don't want a car, want to take public transit, who live downtown, they didn't have those people available. We need to go find them ourselves. And when you expect them to be there and they're not, and it takes extra time to go and find those people, it means you have to do extra work to get the story that you were initially promised. And that might not happen, right? Because that time might just not be budgeted in the day. So if you're going to go with that angle, you need to really follow through on it.
Hashtag PR.
It was a great
It seems like a really sexy story. I'm like, oh man, like when you go to Calgary, the car-to-go thing is everywhere, and then the people that you're wanting to serve with Pogo, you should, try to find at least a few people out there, and then that's the thing, you're going to want to talk to the people who are going to be impacted by the story. So if you're doing those people interest stories, make sure you have the people. PR Win, Children's Wish Foundation, they do a great event called Exile Island, and they have a media team and all that stuff, but they actually get the teams involved with a Children's Wish kit. So there's that really sexy part of the story, like you're a member of the social media team, and you're actually interacting with one of the kids. To have like a media event, but not have any of the beneficiaries of your services, I think, that's a definite PR fail. So yeah, definitely get the people. If you're having people stories, make sure you bring the people that are involved. So write that down, guys. Social media is kind of it's an ever evolving newsroom these days, and it has been since. Yeah, people are getting their news faster immediately. Social media is essentially a newswire these days. Sometimes it's not an accurate newswire. For example, I can think of an Amber Alert. A child goes missing, and then that child is found quite quickly, but you see in your social media stream for about 2 or 3 hours sometimes that child is still missing, and you're trying to correct that. So as media folks, and just as purveyors of information, how do you sift through that chatter? Do you have any tips on how to kind of get to the root of the story?
Well, first of all, you need to be an active user and consumer of social media in order to use it well. So it's important for journalists to do, and it's stunning how many journalists still are not on Twitter, actually, and some, especially in some print newsrooms. There's a lot more than there used to be, but it's just very difficult to get a handle on that medium if you don't use it, and if you don't use it as a reader as well as just a broadcaster of the stuff. If the only way that you use social media is to broadcast your headlines, it's as ineffective as a business that only sends out our when we have a sale, right? And so it's important to be able to anticipate what do readers want to get from this. So that's part of it. As far as the filtering out between the wheat and the chaff, somebody had the great analogy that Twitter is like a self-cleaning oven, and that eventually the truth will out, right? And it actually corrects itself faster than traditional media sometimes. Now, yes, absolutely, there is lots of garbage that is not true, and it does kind of hang around and you have a hangover there. But I think, in a way, because there's more direct communication with the reporters, it is faster to correct the record on social media than it is in traditional media.
Just to kind of pick up on what Karen said, I think the strength of traditional media is that idea of accuracy, authority. Like there's a bit of this gatekeeper kind of, because technically it's supposed to go through editors or kind of the journalistic ethics, technically. So there's that, and then the strength of social media is the immediacy. And in radio, that was something that I think radio traditionally really prided itself in, is we can be immediate. Like with radio, if you have a phone, you can be a reporter because you can phone into the radio station and be broadcast live on the air and just like that. And now I think that's shifting a little bit. I think just the gap is narrowing where traditional media can now still, in all its forms, whether it's TV, print, online, obviously social media, that traditional media can bridge the gap and be more immediate. And likewise, some social media, depending who it is, can have more authority, but there is still, like, they both still have their individual strengths. And I think, social media, I think almost everybody in our newsroom is at least watching social media, even if they're not active on it. They're reading, they're watching, they're seeing what people are talking about to kind of generate, just to find out what the conversations are, so you can find out what stories are of mass appeal. And also, honestly, I think everybody just watches other reporters and what they are tweeting, what they are covering. And that's how you, if someone has a head start on you, that's how you try to make it as short a head start as possible. And that's also how you, I guess, verify the authenticity or the accuracy of a story, is if you see a bunch of people just tweeting something, you're like, that seems crazy, might not be true, then you see a couple of journalists or news outlets tweeting about it, you start to think, okay, like, people have done their homework now, this is something that we really need to check out.
I think in terms of separating the wheat from the chaff, it's really a matter of looking instead of who's talking at you, more like who's talking to you, or what people are talking about, or what the conversation is around. Because there's a million people on Twitter, who are saying like, hey, look at me, I'm doing this thing, and I'm sure you guys probably all have one or two or whatever organizations who are always just saying, hey, check out this thing,
Just
hey, check out
spamming,
this thing. Just
mindless
nonsense
spam.
spamming. So I mean, I think it's a matter of getting people talking about what you're doing and caring about what you're doing, so that it's not you saying it. Because if it's you saying it, then I think everyone sort of tunes out to that.
Yeah, you know, at City Hall, I found it's the social media community is so strong, and people are so engaged, and they've been following issues for a long time, a lot longer than I have in a lot of cases. So I've actually found it like incredibly helpful, because we'll be live tweeting council meeting, and someone will say, "Hey, that's interesting. Didn't they say something different last time?" And have you looked into this little angle? Because I've been following this, and I noticed there seems to be a gap here. Like the community is so knowledgeable. Not to say that you can go, oh yeah, someone on Twitter said this and I'll put that on TV or radio, but it always gives you like a window to look through and to, go after that angle. So you can use them, and I tend to use social media more as tips and go verify it the traditional way, rather than sort of wait for it to filter itself.
Which is a better way of doing that than let's read some tweets on the air, right? Which is, and I mean, we commit that too where I am. We publish tweets, but it's still what the people are saying about a thing that we are putting on, which is a little bit different than just, look how hip we are, we got hashtags on the screen.
Yeah, definitely as an organization, kind of joining the conversation, I think is the best part. Because yeah, like you say, there's the organizations that will just broadcast, and they'll put Brenton on there with Laura, and they're just pitching stories like mindlessly. And it's like, hey, check out this story, and it's a bit.ly link, and it's like 6 or 7 media folks. You're definitely gonna glaze that over unless you're like someone you follow, that you've actually had conversations with them, and you're like, oh, hey, check this out, like I found this out, or we have something going on really cool. You're gonna be more prone to check out what's behind that link if the organization is not just broadcasting, but they're actually joining that conversation and actually a contributor to that said conversation. That's my 2 cents. Absolutely, you can.
So if you are genuinely interesting, people will talk about you. If they're not talking about you, then you're not interesting, so you need to work on that part.
No, that's true. That's a knowledge bomb right there. Be genuinely interesting, not like just shamelessly interesting. We're gonna go. There's a lot of hot issues these days, and a lot of them are covered on social media, almost broadcasting live essentially. For example, the Parliament Hill shootings. For example, as soon as that hit in Ottawa, there was everyone exploding, and that's the thing. Like, this is kind of related to the question I just asked, but like people were reporting false information, and then sometimes certain media outlets will just broadcast that as news, right? So you got to dig deeper. Do you find now that like using Twitter and Facebook, are you using it just out of necessity, or are you actually like legitimate? Is it just like a part of the job now? Like, are you only on Twitter because it's a great way to get the news? And then you reach out to people, the contributors of the conversation, essentially, the people that seem to have some sort of credibility. Will you join in their conversation? Be like, hey, so-and-so, I see that you're tweeting this. Can you contact me, or can you follow me and DM me, because you seem to have a good contribution to the story? Yeah, because people will sometimes just join the conversation just for the sake of joining the conversation. There's a hashtag out there. They just want to put their stamp on that conversation. So as journalists, as members of the media, how do you just like go into their history and kind of see what they've tweeted in the past? Like, how do you find those like legitimate contributors of the conversation?
I think it's the same skill set that we used before we had access to social media. So it's a little bit faster, and you can more easily gauge the credibility of somebody. There's also increasingly sophisticated tools to help us do that quickly. So one of your seed planters was Sound Media, right? So Sound is all about creating a fast way for a newsroom to be able to verify user-generated content and figure out what should be paid attention to and what shouldn't. And James has developed some algorithms that can help, and then a whole system in the back end, so that especially a broadcast newsroom that has a lot of moving parts can see what what we should use and what we shouldn't, right? When there's like Hurricane Sandy and you've got pictures of sharks in the Hudson River, right? It's helpful on a breaking news story where people are like hungry for knowledge to only have to say once to everybody, that's a fake photo, don't use that one, right?
I think we use Twitter out of necessity and also like because it's interesting. Like I think it's a great way to find out information quickly. In the case of the Parliament Hill shootings, or an example like that, it's dangerous to be watching Twitter and you see someone or somebody report or give a fact about it and then just assume it's true. Even if it comes from another news source, you gotta think, like, have they really have a rock solid source on this? In a case like the Parliament Hill shootings, we're depending a lot on a wire service. We depend on Canadian press reporters in Ottawa to give us the details that we can broadcast on the radio or tweet ourselves or whatever. But what we can really use Twitter for, from our perspective, is let's say a local MP tweets that they heard the gunshots and now they're hiding under a desk in a caucus room or whatever. Then that is a credible eyewitness report, you would hope. So you could report that, I think, straight out. It kind of as an eyewitness, as opposed to somebody saying, oh, I heard 3 people are dead in the Parliament Hill shootings. Can't really report that because how do you verify that? Somebody just thinks that. And then the other part of it that Twitter can be really helpful for is then you can tweet that MP and be like, hey, are you okay? Like, is it safe to talk?
Yeah. And
then maybe you can, do an interview for news, get them on a talk show or whatever. So that's something you can use where you're not, regurgitating somebody's unverified details, but you're using them as an eyewitness account, which is kind of different depending how it plays out.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we have a lot of people, like all of our hosts and all of our news people are very actively engaged. I think that makes a difference, in your ability to sort of weed out the bad information, but also to really hone in on but also to find out what's good information, but also to break it really, really quickly. And so I think it is important to actually care about Twitter and actually be engaged and actually be involved, because otherwise you're gonna end up in a position where you're just like, oh, this happened, and and you're too late because you're not. It's not a part of your routine. It's not a part of who you are. So I think it's important to be really engaged instead of just doing that out of necessity. But it certainly is a necessity, I think, in our industry at this point.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's a necessity or if it's just interesting anymore. It's all blended together to me. I can't imagine the job without social media anymore. But it's interesting because it gives you a real inside perspective. It allows you to access stories that you wouldn't have been able to traditionally. For example, I was in the newsroom at about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning when the Hub Mall shootings happened. And I was alone in the newsroom, and tweets started pouring in from people who were trapped in their dorm rooms, and they didn't know what was going on, but you could sort of tell who was a legitimate student who was in that situation and who was someone just reacting to the news from their living room, right? Someone would say, this is terrifying, next. But if someone says, I've been in my dorm room for hours and I don't know what's going on, I don't know if there's 1 shooter or 6, so it's sort of, it is an eyewitness sort of account, but you would have never gotten it before with traditional media. You wouldn't have had access to these people. And it was the same thing during the shootings in Ottawa. You had parliamentary staff, you had MPs who were tweeting about their experience. We would have never had access to those stories in real time before. So it's a really incredible tool, but it is something you still need to verify. You still need to call these people directly, talk to them, verify they are who they say they are, and they are having the experience that they say they're having. But in that case, social media became the story because it was the only way for students to communicate with each other when they were trapped in their dorm rooms under lockdown, having no idea what was going on because the university hadn't told them what was going on still to that point.
It's also such a faster means of distribution and communication, except for maybe radio, because it's immediate and you can break in whenever you want, right? But even then, most of the time you're waiting to the top of the hour. Whereas with the Parliament Hill shootings, Josh Waingrove, a good Edmonton boy, was happened to be inside the building and pointed his phone towards it, and you could hear the shots. Like he was doing journalism there, and the fastest way to get that news to us was by uploading that video so that we could all hear for ourselves.
So if you were ever covering an event with such severity like the Parliament Hill shootings or the Hub Mall, and Anderson Cooper happened to be moseying around, would you stop and ask him for a selfie?
Yes.
Attaboy, Jason. He's like, yeah, I would. I'm sure it's like that.
Stand behind him in his shot.
Yeah. So, what about you guys? I'm sure you guys have, are you just chomping at the bit to ask some questions? Does anybody in the audience have questions? If you do, yes. Yeah, you keener out there. Okay, what is your question, young lady?
I'm really interested in how your employers deal with, is there guidelines or policies around your social media personalities? Is that laid out by employers now? Because they have their journalists, you're way more out there than you ever were before, and I guess, is it handled, or?
For the sake of our video recording device, I'm just going to repeat the question. So you all work for fine media organizations with CBC, Rogers, Chorus, and the Edmonton Journal. Are there strict policies, are there policies to have you, as representatives not only of yourselves, but as your organization, to conduct yourselves accordingly? Or is it just be yourself, just watch what you say, sort of thing? What are your guys', are there policies, is there a framework? Details.
Okay, so I left the Journal newsroom in 2011. At that time, there was a move afoot to have a social media policy, which I argued against, or I said we should have a one-sentence social media policy, which is don't be stupid. I don't think I won that fight, but I also don't think that there ended up being anything that was a big thing. It's a hard thing to do because a lot of people started social media accounts on their own, and then their employers realized that, oh, this is a really powerful tool for doing official business of our organization, but you're representing our organization, so you should follow some rules so that you don't be stupid. And a lot of us who started before the employer cottoned on kind of thought, well, it's my account, right? I'm not speaking on behalf of you all the time, but sometimes I am, and you just have to trust me not to be an idiot. Just the same as I shouldn't walk into a public place or appear on a social media breakfast panel and say a whole bunch of stuff that makes my employer look bad. So that's a big schmozzle of information.
I'm one of those who I guess got a Twitter account before at least before I was aware of any social media policy. So 638 Channel 9 we're part of a big, well, I guess we're all owned by big companies, aren't we? Chorus Entertainment. And from what I understand, the social media policy, I guess essentially is if you're don't be stupid, don't tweet bad things. I guess from your personal account you can get yourself in trouble, but I guess when you're at work, you're primarily tweeting from the station account.
So definitely don't tweet stupid stuff on the station.
Yeah, it's true. Don't tweet a lot of personal opinions on there. So, especially, so let's say in the example of you're tweeting breaking news.
Yeah.
It's a little bit silly if Dreech goes on the Twitter box at work and is like, hey, breaking news, this is happening. And then 630 Ched is tweeting hey, enter a contest. It's kind of we have more followers and we're more reputable than you. So that is, I'm really loosely paraphrasing now, I guess, the social media policy, but that is the idea that tweet from the station account rather than your personal account. Tweet first from station. If you're at home and you're tweeting breaking news from your house, I guess you could tweet from your personal account if you really wanted to, but that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, we're kind of in a different circumstance at BT because we don't have news anchors, we have hosts, right? And we do have a news anchor, Courtney Terry, who does a great job. But our hosts, they are personalities, right? And that's part of it. Is like I'm going to tweet as me saying what I want, and sometimes maybe it goes a bit too far, and they get a bit of a whip. But yeah, for the most part, it's fairly open. But news people, I mean, I think it's just a matter of credibility. It's like you don't want to be tweeting your opinion. You don't want to be saying which party you're going to vote for. Like that's just not part of what you're allowed to do in journalism, really. So.
Yeah, I think it's something we really struggled with at first, particularly because CBC is in a unique position. We're subject to freedom of information requests. So all of you are welcome to read my work emails because they're public information. And when we do journalism on Twitter, that should be public information as well. So our direct messages and our tweets should, some people feel that they should be, open to the public eye. So it puts us in a unique situation, and I actually had a Twitter account as a student before I was affiliated with any media organization, and then stuck a CBC on the end of that. So it creates sort of a murky situation. So at first I was just scared to tweet anything but like news headlines. I'm like, this just happened, here's the facts. And it's, it can be nerve-wracking to have a personality on Twitter when you do have a media, huge media corporation attached to your name. But it's really relaxed now, I found. You're encouraged to have conversations with people and give people an idea of your personality. But it's still a fine line because you never want to make a comment about something that you would ever cover as a reporter. You never want to expose any bias. Because later on people are going to say, well, you said this about this, how could you possibly have an unbiased opinion, how can you possibly cover this story?
You good sir.
First of all, really awesome panel. I think it's been one of the best in a while. I have a question about live tweeting of events, and because I do a lot of that in my own job, and sometimes it's always in the back of my mind. It's like, am I just annoying people by tweeting all the time? In your capacity as journalists, when you're covering, say, a media event, do you find the live tweeting on the part of the organization to be helpful, annoying, or somewhere in the middle, or does it depend on how it's being done?
Karen's just chilling.
Because I love live tweeting, and that's how I listen at stuff anymore. Like I feel like I can't listen without my fingers moving at things. So I mean, Twitter has this natural feedback mechanism of if you are annoying, people will mute or unfollow you. So that's one thing. I just think it's a great way of extending the learning that happens within a room beyond the walls. And if good stuff and interesting stuff is happening there, you're committing an act of journalism by reporting on it, and it's presumably the people who follow you like that sort of thing. So I think it's a tremendously powerful tool for extending the value of any event that is live tweeted.
Yeah, I agree. Live tweeting is excellent, especially if it's a newsworthy news conference event, whatever's going on. Great way to kind of take you inside and give you an idea of what's happening. When I'm at work, even when I'm on the air, I have two computer screens, and if I'm playing like a long Brian Hull sportscast or something, I will be glancing over at the iNews 880 Twitter account. Like I've got it popped up all the time, and we have a ton of followers. So if you're live tweeting and you tweet, once every 2 minutes, it's probably still not going to annoy me because there's so many other tweets coming in as well. But yeah, it's a great way to get inside and to find out what's going on. And even if let's say you're live tweeting something that didn't immediately grab an assignment editor or something when you pitched it via email, they might see these live tweets and they might see something and they're like, hey, this kind of fits in with a bigger trend or a story or something that's going on here. Maybe this is something worth following up on tonight, on the weekend, kind of a feature story. There might be something else that comes out of it.
Yeah, I'm generally for live tweeting, but I think it's a very delicate balance. Like for BT, we're on air for 3.5 hours every morning, and then that's the only show that we put out in the city. So if we're live tweeting everything that we do, and I think we have a lot of great content, but there is that point where it's just okay. People are not going to follow us because they wake up and let's say they wake up at 8. and there's 2.5 hours of just, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, and people are gonna get bored and they're gonna stop following us. So it's a delicate balance. I mean, news, like our city news account, I think they do a lot of great live tweeting and something that a lot of people respond to.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of live tweeting. I spent the entire week live tweeting the city budget. I lost a lot of followers. But I also gained a lot of followers who were really interested in the city budget, couldn't be there for the talks, wanted to know what issues were on the table, what issues were being taken off the table, who was saying what, because that's another interesting thing. If big decisions are being made at City Hall, it doesn't always get reported in a web story, you know, who voted for, who voted against, but that's something that I can get out in real time. But I think the important thing is to make sure that that's what your followers are expecting. Like if I was live tweeting a movie, people would not be into it, right? Because they'd be expecting City Hall news. So I try to make it really clear and upfront in my Twitter profile that I'm a City Hall reporter, and that if you follow me, you're going to be getting City Hall news, and you might be getting a lot of it, but that's what people would expect.
I just had a chuckle, like live tweeting, like scream. You're like, OMG, it's Drew Barrymore, don't answer that phone.
Two Real Girls is a great Twitter account if you want to.
Scott McKean votes no on answering that phone. This just in. I just want to follow up really quickly, and then you guys, I promise. Do you guys use like a dashboard tool to monitor your social media feeds, or do you just go like straight up on the Twitter? Do you like Hootsuite, TweetDeck? Does like iNews 880 use like a dashboard, or is it like just straight up to website?
I mainline it from Twitter, from the Twitter website. I read my Twitter account through Flipboard because it looks better on my phone, and I follow almost 7,000 people, but I pay attention to about 300.
Primarily just looking at the iNews 880 Twitter account, the kind of old-fashioned way. There is our web updating software. I'm probably not using good technology, which is really going to lose me points in this room. Has a dashboard built in, so you, like in our case, we have, you can set up iNews 880, 630 Ched streams, and the Facebook streams. So yeah, we do kind of have a dashboard built into our SoCast, is what it's called. And the other thing that I've been, I guess, setting up is just setting up, I set up like an Edmonton media list in the iNews 80 account, so I can kind of follow, I think it's 120 maybe-ish, so mostly reporters, I think also like the main news organizations. So if they are live tweeting something, so Laura's live tweeting city council, we're creeping on her, so watching what's coming out of that.
In the nicest way possible.
Yes, professional.
The nice kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use Hootsuite. We had a lot of good uses for it. We obviously we're usually only there until noon, and then we have the rest of the day. So otherwise, it's just radio sounds. We also pre-program some tweets, and we also, monitor what's coming in. So we have our tweet of the day segment every day at 8:40, and so that way we are always on top of every feed that we have.
I use TweetDeck quite a lot because at City Hall we use, YEGCC, YEG budget, so I want to be able to monitor those feeds individually. I also use SAM for finding out about specific issues that are going on. And in our office we actually have a large monitor with all the YEG tweets coming in real time as well, so that we can kind of see, what's up, what's trending, what people are talking about.
That's radical. You, Mr. Wiesbrecht, what question did you have, sir?
I just want the panel to elaborate on who do you follow both professionally and personally, and what could put someone on your radar, also which hashtags do you look at regularly?
Criteria for following people, or letting them follow back. Well, how can Hedgehog be in your followers list? That's basically what we're asking.
You are. I'm very, so if you live in Edmonton and you tweet anything interesting, I will follow you if I find you. I don't do, I'm also really interested in future media, so people who are talking about future media wherever they are in the world, that's what I follow. But I use a list that I call Read Every Day that has the people that I'm particularly interested in, and I would say about 2/3 of that are people in Edmonton, and a third is like featured media people. And I don't follow any headline feeds in that. I find those by any means.
That's a good question. I've never actually really like boiled it down to criteria. I guess, yeah, I just follow people that I find interesting. And that's both like my personal account or through the station account that I spend a good number of days looking at over on the other screen. So it's a lot of following other news media, news reporters, particularly locally. Basically, if I find a local news reporter, I will follow them because I'm interested in what they're talking about. And then obviously with that media list as well, I'm kind of drawing a blank on what else I follow, so I'll just pass the mic over.
Yeah, I'm in largely the same boat. If you're in Edmonton, you're interesting. You're saying something that I care about. News people, like I try and make a pretty good habit of adding news people just in case, I'm missing something or things like that. But yeah, just a matter of following. Yes, I wasn't holding it close enough. Hi. Hey. Yeah, so just Edmonton media, Edmonton just interesting people, movers, shakers, and all that fun stuff, and then just personal interests. That's my person.
I follow every Edmonton reporter I can think of, whoever I find I like to follow just because I'm interested in Edmonton news and that's what they're talking about. I'm also really interested in downtown, so I follow the YEG DT hashtag, YEG CC, YEG budget, people who are interested in City Hall. I'm also much more likely to follow people who talk to me directly or who are talking or having conversations in those hashtags that are relevant. But yeah, if someone talks to me directly, I know they're like a legitimate person who I can have a conversation with, so I'm more likely to follow them. I follow decision makers a lot, so I think it's interesting to get their inside take on Twitter, whatever they're willing to release. And I do follow a lot of news organizations as well, just because I kind of like getting the headlines, and that's how I get my news.
Social media advertorials, changing your business model, is that a thing? Question?
I think it's a thing, and I think we're still trying to figure out what that looks like. So I think that there's so many different manifestations of what we might call advertorial or sponsored content or native advertising or commercial content, all of these kinds of things. The general view, I would say, is that it's important to be transparent, so that if something is paid for, you should acknowledge it, and yet knowing the acknowledgement itself causes people to tune it out, right? So then how do you deal with that? Just for full transparency, with Capital Ideas is it appears in the newspaper. It is, we approach it with a journalistic approach to finding out what people have to say, what entrepreneurs have to say, and publicizing it. We are underwritten by ATB. If you follow Capital Ideas YEG or Capital Ideas YYC, on occasion you will see us retweet something that ATB Business puts out because they're our partner. But they also put out interesting things. Like, we think that it's of use to our audience. Now, are we blurring a line? I don't know. You guys have to tell me. But the way that I try to deal with that ethically is to say, well, if their logo is on our stuff, there's no question that they are underwriting us, and so it's there. And if it's not useful to you, then you have mechanisms to react, and you can always tell me that too.
The short answer is not that I've noticed, not in the newsroom side. I don't know how it works from a programming standpoint, if there's like a deal with promotions at all, because promotions does tweet stuff out from the station account. I think it's more promotions, like our station promotions or contests or whatever like that. But from a news standpoint, we don't really have that. Maybe the closest examples we would have would have been something that is kind of a long-standing thing anyway, that isn't necessarily tied in with social media. It's just, let's say I'm doing a story about there's a trend of more mice in people's houses, so we're going to call an exterminator. So if I just pick up the phone and call the first exterminator that pops up on Google, what I really should do is I go down to the sales department and be like, hey, do we have any exterminators that do business with us? And they're like, yeah, here's one called Poolins or whatever. So then I call Poolins, because if Poolins listens to the radio and they're like, why'd you call ABC exterminator? I'll be like, I don't know. I'll be like, well, why do I spend so much money? Like, it's not like we're doing an ad for them, but if you're going to get a voice on a story anyway, you might as well get one that is already an advertiser, so you don't make them angry with you. So that would be kind of my best example.
Yeah. And I think that's relevant to us as well, because we have a lot of chefs in the show. We also have restaurants who sponsor our show, so there is that kind of thing. But we do have a lot of contests. We do have a lot, just on our Twitter feed, we have a lot of contests. We have a lot of like Rogers integrations or shuttling. We'll tweet things on our. And I think the important part from our standpoint is that you just have to balance it, and you can't make it too much. Like at a certain point, it gets to feel like it's just you're being sold something, and people just start to stop trusting you, and they start just ignoring you and probably don't follow you. So always striking that balance, and always having like, hey, here's something that you'll like, so that you can deal with the fact that we're writing this other content down the thread. So.
Yeah, that's not something we deal with so much at CBC because we don't do a lot of advertising, and usually when we do work with sponsorship deals, it's with nonprofits and things like that. So that as far as I'm aware of, we don't do too much of that. But as a journalist and a reader, aside from my role at CBC, I really don't mind advertorials if they're interesting and they're upfront about the fact that it's an advertorial. As long as it's clear that this is like a privately funded or has some other interest. If it's interesting, I'll read it, and that's just fine with me, even if they're trying to sell me something, because maybe they're trying to sell me something I'm interested in. But if it's not clear, I am enraged. So I think that's where the distinction is.
I did think of one more example, actually. Let's say there's a case of a big event, a big exhibit or something coming to town, and it has happened, not often, but sometimes. Let's say you're doing a story on some event at Expo Center or Telus World of Science or whatever, and Chorus Radio Edmonton is a sponsor of those stations in our cluster. Then it's kind of like, oh well, it's an interesting story, and hey, we're a sponsor, so we should probably give it some news coverage. There has been, I can think of maybe one or two examples where it's like, I might have been told, hey, there's this big event coming. They almost bought from us but didn't. So we don't really need to, if we need to mention it in the news, let's mention it, but let's not give them any more publicity than we need to. So we don't need to have them on our talk shows. If it's an event, you might mention it on the news because, hey, it's newsworthy, and if we don't talk, it's going to be conspicuous. But let's not do 5 stories on it, because then they're kind of getting free publicity. So there's that kind of blurry area where I just thought.
I just imagine Brenton breaking news, as I sip on this tasty Coca-Cola, just shameless product placement.
It's not as powerful on the radio.
Yeah, I know. So we have time for one more question. You shot up. We'll do 2 more questions and then we'll round up. Go. Yeah, it's you.
You talked a lot about Twitter today, and I was just wondering what other social platforms you use, or
there is only Twitter. Next question. I'm just kidding. I kid.
Is there any that hold any of the same authority?
I don't know about authority, but it's handy and it's useful and it's good for the stuff that I'm interested in, and that's where I found my people. So the things that I use are most are Twitter and Facebook. Twitter let me meet people that I didn't know I wanted to know, and I'm so glad I did. Facebook keeps me in touch with people that I used to know, which sometimes is good and sometimes is upsetting. I use Tumblr. I blog once a week on Tumblr, and I read Tumblr a lot. I have not figured out what Pinterest would do for me, although I feel like I could be there. I have a Google Plus account because everybody does.
Nobody uses it.
The other big one for us would be Facebook, and largely just to start conversations, especially being at a news talk radio station. You post a news story a couple hours before you go on the air with your talk show, and you say, hey, what do you think about this? And then people start commenting, and then you can engage with those comments on the air. So that's kind of I think, probably the biggest reason we use Facebook at 630 Jet is to get people commenting. So you get clicks and people paying attention to your news stuff, but largely to get people talking about it and to have something just more material for your actual talk segment on the air to kind of make it seamless.
Yeah, BT, we try to be really engaged and really interactive with our audience, and so Facebook is probably our main use of social media, where we'll post a conversation topic, and that'll be sort of we'll talk about it throughout the morning, and then we'll also be reading your posts, and so it's oh hey, I should watch my post because it's going to be on at this time. And so those are that's the main one. We use Twitter quite a bit, and then we've recently started Instagram account, which we, it's just there's something really cool. Right. I was just gonna say, yeah, Instagram is just there's something so potent about like, oh hey, there's
It's that visual part of the story that you guys find so sexy.
Yeah, you got it.
In terms of getting our message out at CBC, Twitter and Facebook are definitely our number one. We don't really have to go much further than that. Facebook, again, just for starting conversations and following those conversations. Facebook is hugely useful. In terms of my job, any place that people are posting information about themselves, what their lives, or what's going on is incredibly useful to me. Particularly for crime reporting when I was working the late at night shifts. And I always tell my friends, if you were to die tragically or commit a heinous crime, don't post anything anywhere on the internet that you wouldn't want on the news at that time, because we will find it. So, we use things like LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter. Reddit we use a lot. Reddit is a fantastic way of getting picked up by media organizations if you just want to, start a conversation or find out the best way, get some feedback on something you think might be a story. Reddit is a great place to post it because people are always looking through there. And if something were to happen to you and you posted something along on Reddit, we would probably put that on the news. So
probably pick that up too.
Exactly. So yeah, any social media is incredibly useful to reporters, but in terms of getting our message out, generally we tend to keep it to Twitter and Facebook.
What? Was that your
Sorry, can I
question?
just add one quick
Yes,
thing
you can,
on that?
absolutely.
Just very quickly, especially on the news talk side, I think our approach to it is very much that it's not a bunch of different conversations, it's all part of one conversation. So it used to be you listen to a call-in radio show and it's like, call me at 1-800 blah, 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 blah. And now it's like, hey, if you want to weigh in, you can call us. They might not even say the call-in number. They might just say the text number or the Twitter account, or Facebook. Like, hey, you can weigh in on this here. We got a Facebook post, we got a comment from so-and-so, we got a tweet from so-and-so, we got a text from so-and-so. It's all one conversation, just on different platforms.
And just one little quick interesting note that I noticed yesterday, the Edmonton Journal is right now going to be working on consolidating all of its Facebook accounts into the main one. So there had been separate Facebook accounts sometimes for different departments. The Press Gallery podcast, which is where I saw this, had its own Facebook. Now the official ones are all going to be consolidated. They said because Facebook told them that would be better for engagement. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, thank you.
So are there any trends or tools that excite you about the future of media, where your industry is going?
In terms of social media?
Anything.
In terms of any tools or trends, what excites you? What caffeinates your mind? Yes, Karen.
So I'm constantly interested, right? So I think that the trend that I see, which is a continuation of what's happening, but will continue to accelerate, is journalism everywhere by everybody. So it is so interesting that that we don't have one-to-many mass communication anymore, and that we can find real stuff out from so many other places, and it's just more interesting. There's costs to that, and there's also the other trend that's happening, which is less rosy than that, is the continued implosion of traditional business models in media, which is going to have a whole bunch of negative consequences, and I believe it will also have a whole bunch of positive consequences. It's certainly given rise to a million experiments about how to do this better, and I think that it's so interesting to watch where it's going.
Yeah, I think Karen's probably the most qualified to answer a lot of those types of questions. Just for me personally, I'll maybe just keep it to kind of the radio world, which is where I hang out mostly. Just even at our radio station, what I like is I like being able to have that conversation across all those platforms. You're engaging lots of different people. And also I've noticed, just with 630 CHED specifically, and I think this is, I'm not in on the decision making, but I think it's probably reflective of what other news talk stations are doing as well, is news talk, AM radio has this reputation of being redneck radio. I'm sure we've all heard segments that have made us think that. And I think even from when I started like 8 years ago, I think it's really changed to now to where it's less of that, where news talk has recognized that that can get people mad and keep them tuned in because they're so mad at the host. But I think what keeps people around long-term is just interesting conversations, like a nuanced conversation about difficult issues. You might have one host on one side, one on the other side. Maybe one's a conservative, one's a liberal, I don't know. But just like it can be more nuanced and more thoughtful discussion now, and less of just hitting the outrage button. So I think that's a really positive thing. And even just specifically, again with 630 Ched is moving to more local programming. Like we have a lot more city councilors on now than we used to, because we had a lot more kind of provincial syndicated programming. So those are two really good trends that I see in news talk, especially here in Edmonton.
Yeah, I think just accessibility, like Karen was saying, we have a lot of voices now that we wouldn't have had, 15 years ago. Like Mac is a great example of that. Someone who's, we're lucky to have in Edmonton, but may not have been around however many years ago. And then also just accessibility of video footage. We can make these amazing videos that we can just throw a GoPro on something and it can look great, So it allows us a lot more to do visually, So today we had.
throw a GoPro on Peter Holdren even.
Yeah.
Keeps me
Watch the train wreck out. No. Totally. So today it was, yesterday we were out at the Garrison, Bridget was out at the Garrison, and the camera guy just popped a GoPro on his dash, and so he had him driving on the treacherous roads all the way back, and so it was like a 20-minute thing that we made into a 2-minute thing, and it looked really, really cool. And it's just, there's a lot more you can do, and you can do a lot. You can get really creative now, so that's nice.
Yeah, journalism is such a scary business to be in right now because it's changing so quickly, and the traditional models just don't work anymore. I think we're all dealing with, all of the companies are dealing with that in a different way. But it is a really exciting time because you're part of establishing what the future is going to look like. One of the things I'm really excited about is refocusing on local content. The fact that we're local people with a focus on what's happening locally, I think is really important. Because you can get other content anywhere. You don't have to get it from us, but we are the experts in Edmonton. The other thing I love is journalism is a two-way street. Journalism is an ongoing conversation. So I don't produce content and put it out there and just take several steps back. Every time I do a story, I end up having lengthy conversations with viewers and audience about it afterward, and including the source of the story. For city councillors will get involved in that conversation as well. On Twitter, on Facebook, in the comments section. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to at CBC is being able to do more sort of live chats as the coverage, you know what I mean, as opposed to putting up a story, waiting for the conversation to trickle in afterward. Just having the conversation in the public sphere and letting that inform people. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to, is that the focus is coming right back on local people right now in the business. It's fantastic.
Thank you all again. So, as our pixel fire burns down to pixel ambers and our chat wraps up, I want to thank all our fine folks for joining us today. So let's give them all a hand. Thank you, Brian, again, for sponsoring this fun breakfast, because we wouldn't be able to do it without you. We wouldn't have this awesome knowledge bomb filled conversation if it wasn't for the good folks at Blue Train Inc. So thank them again. So thank you all for coming again. Thank you all for braving the elements and attending Social Media Breakfast numero 38. There will be Social Media Breakfast numero 39 in January. Because it's the holidays. We want you to network with your nearest and dearest. But share the turkey pictures and your fire photos with us at SMBYEG. Follow us again. Check us out online at our front webpage at smbyeg.ca. You guys are awesome. Feel free to snag a loaf or two of deliciousness from Prairie Mills, grab some coffee, and be safe and make good choices.